Welcome to Preps Insider. I'm Jim Leo with BATV, joined by Jay Schwab, the sports editor at the Kane County Chronicle, and Kevin Drewley, sports reporter over at the Chronicle. And guys, it's our first basketball Preps Insider of the season, the basketball season upon us. A little bit of an overlap from football to basketball, and the girls are starting this week, the guys next week. Looking around at some of the teams in the area, Jay, who are some of the teams that stand out to you that we should be kind of highlighting and taking a look at throughout the course of the year?
Well, I'd start off by saying around the Tri-Cities from a boys basketball standpoint, I think this year is going to be an up year, an exciting year. And last year we've brought it up a couple times, I know, in print, but that regional championship Friday night, we were 0 for Batavia, Geneva, St. Charles East, St. Charles North were out real quick last year, and I don't think it's going to be a year like that this season. I think it's going to be a substantial step up, and St. Charles North, I guess, would be the place to start. They return three starters and 3 really excellent ball players from a team last year that was an above 500 team, and then kind of the sizzle factor is a sophomore by the name of Kane, transferring in from Florida, who's supposed to be a superb basketball player. Just as a point of reference, his older brother, Kane, plays at Iowa now, and there's a lot of people who seem to think that Quentin maybe has more upside or maybe is even a little farther ahead. So St. Charles North is a team that has a chance to not only be, projects if they stay healthy, not only to be a team that could win a regional, but really could make a lot more noise than this area has seen in boys basketball for a while. Josh Mikas also being another dynamic player at North. And then beyond that, staying in St. Charles, East should be on the other side of 500 this year. Last year they started Kendall Stevens and Charlie Fisher. Stevens started as a freshman, Fisher as a sophomore, so they were both good enough to start as real young ball players. Both those guys are back and will benefit from that experience. And then Coach Brian Clody tells us that over the summer, another guy, Spencer Motley, was even their best player throughout the course of the summer. So just starting with that trio, those are 3 pretty good basketball players to build around. Geneva, Phil Ralston in his 3rd season at Geneva, and they've won a combined 40 games his first 2 years. So that program's been on an upward swing. And in talking with Coach Ralston, I got the impression that he thinks this team could well be his best of the first 3. So the Connor Quinn, the football star, was probably going to help out as a role player. He unfortunately tore his ACL at the end of the football season, so they will have to overcome that. But there are some really good pieces. Dan Trimble and Will Deckel being probably the top 2 guys for that Geneva team. And then Batavia, year in, year out, obviously a solid program. It's just a question. They're going to be good. It's more of a question of just how good they're going to be. And I think that the paint is going to be a real strong suit for Batavia this year, with Elliott Vaughn being a young man who can really rebound and had a strong summer, and now as a senior is a big, strong kid. Cole Gardner, we know well from football season. Even as a sophomore, I remember last year, he was certainly capable of mixing up with some older, stronger kids, and now a year ahead. And then Jesse Coffey in the backcourt being a really capable guard to anchor the Bulldogs' perimeter. So I think Batavia is looking at potentially also being a better team than it was a year ago. So should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and of course, Coach Rob Wasinski making the move from football to basketball temporarily as assistant coach. He was an assistant in the past for the girls, is that correct?
Yeah, at a few of the schools he's been at, he's had some assistant coaching, but that's kind of way in his background going back. You have to go back about 10 years or so to find those roots. But yeah, he wanted back in, and as far as the way I see it, that can only be a good thing for that program.
Certainly. And looking at the schedules of some of these local teams, Kevin, anybody really have a schedule that kind of eases them into the season, or are there some teams too that have some tough tests early on?
I think that we mentioned Coach Wasinski. He'll be on the better side of the first couple of weeks of the season. They started 0-2 in football, but just with some of the tournaments they play and chance to play Streamwood and Larkin early on in the Upstate 8 River slate, really feel like they can start strong. And that's really been the tradition under Coach Ralston. They've really gotten off hot out of the gate, and they build that up in the conference season and end up being conference contenders, whether you think they might be or not. Just with the style they play, it'll be interesting to see that style, for instance, against St. Charles North and a team that might try to get out up court, but it's worked for them. And like I say, they go to the Hoops for Healing tournament, which it has all these tournaments have pretty decent fields, but it's certainly not the caliber of one over at St. Charles East, which I think might potentially slow down either of the St. Charles teams, just depending upon how they can compete with some of that outside the region, talent that's coming. Batavia too, they're not the most experienced team in the world, but they do have a lot of promising guys coming up from the younger ranks. We're having our basketball preview edition coming out later this week, and one of the more kind of eye-popping stats was Jesse Coffey shot 88% from the free throw line. So obviously, don't always win the game from there, but it's good to have a guy like that. And just games that come down the stretch early or late in the season, you have that to draw upon. The other end of it, Kaneland, I think Kaneland can compete, in kind of the land of the unknown. We got to know a lot more of the Northern Illinois Big 12 during football season, but we'll see how things shape up in basketball. But they've got a couple football carryovers that'll be joining them whenever this run ends. One of those guys is Tyler Callahan, who had some real strong moments last year, and big force down low and kind of developing more of a scoring touch as well. So seems like those are the teams that hit or miss, hot and cold, but just regardless, I know they want to be starting the season, and here we are, like you say. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the girls' side, the Geneva Vikings have not lost a regular season game in 2 years. Jay, can they make it 3 years?
I don't think so, and that's only really commenting on the degree of difficulty of what they've done already. That's just really of all the things in my time covering sports in this area, the different achievements, regular season, postseason, that's way up, arguably at the top of the list in terms of that streak for the last couple of years. That's outstanding. Geneva is going to be very good, probably our best girls basketball program in the area again this year. I'm a big believer in hoops and guards just being so important, and obviously it's nice to have the post players, but if you've got some guards that can really play, more often than not, you're going to be in really good shape, and that is the strength of this Geneva team, with Kat Yell, Sammy Schofield, and Ashley Santos all being really accomplished players that contributed to a high level of success last year in Kat Yell's instance, going back farther than that. The question with them is the front court. They lose Lauren Wasinski and Kelsey Augustine, who were pillars for several years, and then the injury bug also caught up with the Geneva girls before the season started. Ashley's younger sister, Sydney Santos, also an ACL issue. They're going to miss her. She was only going to be a freshman, but a really highly regarded prospect. So that's the deal with Geneva. It's pretty open and shut case. We know their backcourt's going to be excellent. We know they're going to create a gazillion turnovers, and when they play some of the better teams with a lot of size that are more well-rounded over the course of the year, that'll be Coach Nolan's task is to kind of retool that front court and make sure that they're equipped to deal with some size when that presents itself.
So Geneva clearly is one of the upper echelon teams in the area. Are there any other dark horse teams we should keep an eye on, Kevin?
Yeah, and with St. Charles North, it would be a paler dark horse, I guess, because they do have some talent coming back with Tess Fisher and with Sydney and Taylor Russell, and they were both certainly contributors last year to that run that almost took out Geneva. We all remember that regional championship game north in Geneva, and those teams will play twice this season now, and they get the first one underway early. They won't play in the Geneva Thanksgiving tournament, but they'll play a couple days after that. And so they'll be getting that off, like we say, really early. It's going to be interesting. They had Kylie Hackbarth, and on the other side of town that we've written about, Lexi Baltus at East, and you had these really 4-year pillars at the point guard position. But they're saying over at North, Coach Colleen Brennan saying they're, going to run an offense that really doesn't necessarily run through a designated 1 or 2, and you almost, you don't throw out the records, you throw out the numbers. It just sounds like it would, be kind of seamless as far as a lot of people being able to take the ball up. So we'll see how that fares. They lose Jenna Bell, who was really the key to that, the chink in Geneva's armor and almost taking them over the top in that game last year. So got a couple returners and a couple young options that they're working into that mix. The other side of the area, I guess, I think Kaneland's going to be a little better than people expect. They've struggled the past couple seasons. But the change of scenery, I think, with the new conference ought to serve them well. I know Coach Colombe, and maybe a little bit of it is tongue-in-cheek because those outcomes have been a little lopsided. But he does believe that you do gain something playing in Geneva twice a a year. And he mentioned the development of Kelly Evers, who's a junior center that's coming back, and just being able to go up against a Lauren Wasinski and a Kelsey Augustine twice a year, or a Kelsey Stone at Batavia, just is really beneficial to her development. They feel good about where she's at. They get a transfer named Corey Flowers, who's 6'2", and she comes over from Aurora Christian. She played quite a bit last year, so they feel good about what they have down low, in addition to a lot of returning experienced guards. Emily Heimberdinger is one, Andy Strang. So Kaneland's, they got a good mixture of people coming back with experience, whether it was from Kaneland itself or Aurora Christian. So we'll see, we'll see some different teams and some different trips out in this conference, but they feel like they can be competitive every night. So we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Well, it's nice. Hoop season is upon us. Always fun to cover that. Guys, thanks so much for your help. And we'll be back again for another edition of Preps Insider.